$150,000. 10 years ago, that was an amount that could change a life. Today in the United States or Western Europe, $150,000 isn't even enough for a down payment on a modest home, not to buy a house, just to be allowed to start. Meanwhile, in other parts of the world, that same amount can buy you a real home, not a promise, not a future plan, but a tangible asset in your name paired with long-term residency and, more importantly, an exit. Because the real problem today isn't just housing prices, it's the bigger picture. The global cost of living is rising faster than incomes. Taxes are becoming more complex. Visas are harder to secure. And instability, political, economic, social, has become the new normal. In this environment, more people are realizing a simple truth: you can't place your entire life into a single country, a single system, or a single passport. And so, a quiet shift is underway. People are no longer just diversifying their investment portfolios. They're diversifying their lives, where they live, where they work, and where they retain options. In this video, we'll look at 5 countries where real estate isn't just a place to live, but a strategic tool. A tool to reduce risk, a tool to expand options, and in a world that's becoming increasingly unpredictable, a way to reclaim control over your own decisions. 5. Paraguay strategy. Exiting the system quietly but effectively. What if you're not trying to become richer, but simply less controlled? What if your goal isn't visibility or status, but risk reduction, less tax exposure, fewer dependencies, and less reliance on a single system? If that sounds familiar, Paraguay deserves your attention. Paraguay is widely considered one of the easiest countries in the world to obtain permanent residency. There's no flashy investment program, no 6-figure real estate requirement. In many cases, you only need to demonstrate stable income or a bank deposit of roughly $5,000 to $10,000, along with a clean background check to qualify for permanent residency, often within a few months. No quotas, no competition, no media hype. Because of that, real estate is not a requirement in Paraguay. It's a supporting tool, a way to reinforce long-term ties to the country if you choose to. With $70,000 to $120,000, you can purchase a standalone home or large plot of land in or around Asunción. Average property prices range from $600 to $900 per square meter, well below regional averages, and with virtually no speculative pressure. What makes Paraguay compelling isn't lifestyle marketing or postcard scenery. It's the things people don't talk about. Paraguay operates under a territorial tax system. Income generated outside the country is in principle not taxed locally. Property taxes are minimal. There's no aggressive inheritance tax regime, and perhaps most importantly, physical presence requirements are low. You don't need to live there year-round to maintain permanent residency. So why does Paraguay almost never appear on mainstream YouTube channels? Because it doesn't sell a dream. There are no famous beaches, no luxury lifestyle to film, no large expat bubble creating a sense that everyone is moving there. Paraguay appeals instead to quiet entrepreneurs, people who value privacy, low visibility, and strategic flexibility over external validation. That discretion does come with trade-offs. Paraguay isn't glamorous. It's not a place to showcase success. Infrastructure is functional, not impressive. Life moves slowly, very slowly. And if you thrive on constant stimulation, Paraguay may feel almost invisible. But that invisibility is exactly the point. Paraguay doesn't try to keep you. It doesn't demand cultural performance or constant proof of integration. It simply offers a place to exist outside the spotlight. And in a world that's becoming increasingly monitored, regulated, and centralized, that's not a weakness. It's a strategic advantage. 4. Egypt strategy. Buying citizenship, not buying a lifestyle. What if you have no intention of living there at all? No plan to learn the language, no desire to integrate, no interest in the culture or the day-to-day reality. In that case, does citizenship still have value? In Egypt's case, the answer for certain people is yes. Egypt offers one of the most straightforward citizenship by investment programs in the world. There's no long waiting period, no multi-year residency requirement, no need to prove cultural integration or physical presence. Instead, citizenship is treated as a transaction. You qualify, you invest, and you receive a passport typically within 6 to 12 months. The most accessible route is real estate. A $200,000 USD property purchase held for a minimum period can qualify you directly for Egyptian citizenship. No requirement to live in the country, no obligation to spend a certain number of days per year. In this model, real estate isn't a lifestyle choice, it's simply the entry ticket. Property prices make this feasible. In Greater Cairo, average residential prices range from $800 to $1,200 per square meter, with coastal developments along the Red Sea sometimes falling in the same range for early-stage projects. You're not buying scarcity or prestige, you're buying eligibility. So why would anyone do this? Because Egyptian citizenship is not about where you live, it's about geopolitical diversification. The Egyptian passport is one of the cheapest ways to add a Middle Eastern and African citizenship to your portfolio. Visa-free or visa-on-arrival access covers roughly 90 to 100 countries, and while it won't replace a top-tier passport, it can meaningfully reduce dependency on a single nationality. For some investors, that's enough. Egypt becomes a Plan B passport, something you hold, not something you use daily. It sits quietly in the background, offering optionality in a world where mobility rules can change overnight. But this strategy comes with very real risks, and they need to be stated clearly. Egypt is not a jurisdiction known for legal predictability or investor-friendly bureaucracy. Property law can be opaque. Enforcement can be inconsistent. Rules may change with little warning. This is not a country for people who need absolute legal clarity or long-term regulatory stability. That's why Egypt should never be your core strategy. It's not a place to anchor your life, your capital, or your future. At best, it should represent 10 to 15% of an overall diversification plan, a single chess piece, not the board. Egypt works when expectations are aligned. You're not buying safety, you're not buying comfort, you're not buying lifestyle. You're buying optionality, another door in a world where doors are slowly closing. And for a certain type of investor, that alone can justify the price. 3. Albania strategy. Europe before the door closes. If this is Europe, why does it still feel priced like Southeast Asia? That's the question most people ask the first time they look seriously at Albania. Mediterranean coastline, European culture, visa-free access to much of Europe. And yet, property prices that feel like they belong to another decade. Albania remains one of the cheapest entry points into Europe-adjacent real estate. In Tirana, the capital residential prices average around $1,000 to $1,400 per square meter, depending on location and build quality. Along the Adriatic coast, especially in developing seaside towns, prices can still fall below that range. For under $150,000, owning a modern apartment or coastal property is still realistic. But Albania isn't just about price, it's about timing. The country has pursued consistently open policies toward foreigners. Property ownership is straightforward. Residency permits are accessible if you own real estate or can demonstrate income. There's no aggressive scrutiny, no complex investment thresholds, and no pressure to integrate overnight. The system is still flexible, and flexibility is usually the first thing to disappear once a country becomes popular. The coastline is another part of the equation. Albania's beaches along the Ionian and Adriatic Seas are often compared to Greece or southern Italy clear water. Dramatic cliffs, historic towns without the crowds or the price tags. For many investors, this isn't about living there full-time. It's about owning a foothold in a part of Europe that hasn't yet been fully priced in. There's a reason Albania today feels eerily similar to Portugal 15 years ago. Back then, Portugal was overlooked, cheap, underdeveloped, outside the mainstream radar. Then, infrastructure improved. Foreign capital arrived, residency programs gained attention, and prices multiplied. Albania is earlier in that cycle. Not guaranteed, but clearly, at the beginning, not the end. Which reframes the real question. It's no longer, should I invest in Albania? It's, will this still be possible in 5 or 10 years because countries don't stay open, cheap, and flexible forever? Once demand arrives, the rules harden. Prices rise, and the window narrows. That said, Albania comes with trade-offs you can't ignore. It is not part of the European Union. Infrastructure quality varies significantly outside major cities. Bureaucracy can still feel inconsistent, and while momentum is building, Albania is not yet a finished product. But that's also where the upside lives. Albania isn't priced like a mature European market because it isn't one. It's priced like a country in transition. And for investors who understand cycles, transitions are where asymmetric opportunities exist. Albania won't stay quiet forever. The only real uncertainty is who arrives first and who arrives too late. 2. Uruguay strategy. Trading money for peace of mind. What if you don't need to become richer, just safer? If your priority isn't rapid growth, but long-term stability, legal, political, and social, then Uruguay is a country worth serious consideration. Uruguay is widely regarded as the most stable country in Latin America. Not the biggest, not the fastest growing, but one with durable democratic institutions, a clear legal system, and strong respect for private property qualities that are rare in the region. Here, the rules don't change often. And for many people, that consistency alone has value. Uruguay doesn't offer flashy citizenship by investment programs. Residency follows a much more grounded path. You move there, you establish income, you integrate into daily life. If you purchase property and set up your base, permanent residency is achievable. After roughly 3 to 5 years of actual residence, you may qualify for citizenship, not because you paid for it, but because you lived there. Real estate reflects this mindset. In Montevideo, the capital average apartment prices range from $1,800 to $2,500 per square meter, depending on the neighborhood. That's not cheap by Latin American standards. But in exchange, you're buying into a transparent market, clear title ownership, and a system with minimal risk of sudden legal reversals. What makes Uruguay appealing isn't excitement, it's quiet reliability. Low political volatility, minimal social unrest, very little drama. Society moves slowly but steadily. Public services function. Healthcare is solid. Education is dependable. It's the kind of place many people underestimate until they've experienced instability elsewhere. Uruguay is especially well suited for those seeking a place to settle long-term, not a short-term bet. It won't make you feel like your assets are about to double, but it does make you feel confident that things will still work next year and 10 years from now. That stability comes at a cost. Uruguay is not cheap. The cost of living is higher than in neighboring countries, and if you become a long-term tax resident, The tax burden can be significant, particularly on global income. This is not a jurisdiction for aggressive tax minimization, but for some, that's a trade-off worth making. They're not paying to maximize returns. They're paying to sleep well at night. No sudden rule changes, no political shocks, no need to pack up because the system shifted. Uruguay doesn't promise much, and precisely because of that, it often delivers. One Serbia strategy: Europe without the EU. What happens if you get the advantages of Europe without carrying Europe's heaviest burdens? If you can live at the heart of the continent, access its culture markets and rhythm of life while avoiding the rising costs, complex taxes and tightening regulations that now define much of the EU. That's exactly why Serbia takes the #1 spot on this list. Serbia sits in one of the most strategic locations in Europe at the crossroads of East and West, between the EU, the Balkans, and the Middle East. From Belgrade, most major European cities are just a short flight away. Yet Serbia remains outside the European Union, and that distance creates a rare zone of flexibility. Real estate in Serbia is still reasonably priced relative to its upside. In Belgrade, average apartment prices range from $1,500 to $2,000 per square meter, depending on the neighborhood, with $120,000 to $180,000 owning a quality apartment in the capital or a strong property in another major city is still realistic. The market isn't overheated, and more importantly, it hasn't yet been saturated by speculative international capital. But Serbia is more than numbers. It's a country with a vibrant culture, an open and social population, a lively nightlife, and a very human pace of life. Not overly polished, not overly regulated. Serbia feels like Europe before everything became too standardized, too expensive, and too tightly controlled. What truly puts Serbia at #1 isn't perfection, it's balance. A rare balance between cost, personal freedom, and future potential. Living expenses remain low by European standards. Individual autonomy is still high, and the country's growth story, economically and geopolitically, is still ahead of it, not already priced in. Of course, there are trade-offs. The Serbian passport isn't particularly strong compared to EU passports. It's not a mainstream destination. There's no massive expat ecosystem and very little hype. But that's also why Serbia hasn't been fully exploited yet. There's still room for early movers. Serbia isn't for everyone. But if you're looking for the best balance of cost freedom and upside in a Europe that's gradually closing its doors, this is one of the few options still open. And in a world where options are disappearing, sometimes having just one door left open is already a powerful advantage. There is no perfect country. Every place comes with trade-offs, strengths, weaknesses, and compromises that can't be avoided. But in an increasingly unstable world, the goal is no longer perfection, it's optionality. Each country you've seen in this video isn't a dream. It's a chess piece. A piece in a much larger life strategy. Some pieces reduce risk, some preserve freedom, some protect the future, and some exist for one simple reason, so you're never forced into a single corner. Because the real question isn't where you live today. It's this: if everything changed tomorrow, would you have somewhere else to go? If this video made you think differently about real estate citizenship or how to design your long-term life strategy. The conversation doesn't end here. In the next video, we'll break down the biggest mistakes people make when buying property for relocation decisions that feel safe but quietly lock you in for years. And if you're asking yourself with just $100,000, is there still a path forward? That's a story we'll explore next. I'll see you in the next one.